Welcome back to the C# Full Beginner course. So far, you've learned how to store data, take user input, and make decisions in your programs. But right now, every line of code only runs once. Real programs don't work like that. They repeat actions automatically. In this lesson, you'll learn one of the most important concepts in programming: loops. By the end of this video, you'll know how to repeat code using while loops and for loops, and when to use each one. Why loops exist. Imagine writing the same line of code 10 times or 100 times. That would be slow, messy, and error-prone. Loops exist to solve this problem. They allow your program to repeat a block of code automatically based on a condition. Once you understand loops, your programs become smaller, cleaner, and far more powerful. What a loop is. A loop is a structure that runs code repeatedly. It keeps running as long as a condition remains true. Once the condition becomes false, the loop stops. This simple idea is used everywhere, from games and apps to websites and operating systems. While loops explained. A while loop repeats code while a condition is true. Before each repetition, the condition is checked. If the condition is true, the code runs. If it's false, the loop stops immediately. While loops are best used when you don't know in advance how many times something will repeat. How a while loop flows. A while loop follows a simple cycle. First, the condition is checked. If it's true, the code runs. Then something inside the loop changes, like a number increasing. After that, the condition is checked again. If you forget to change the value, the loop may never stop. For loops explained. A for loop is designed for situations where you do know how many times something should repeat. It includes a starting value, a condition, and a step that runs after each repetition. This makes for loops very compact and easy to read. They are commonly used for counting, lists, and fixed-length operations. How a for loop works. A for loop starts by setting a counter. It then checks a condition. If the condition is true, the code runs. After each repetition, the counter is updated automatically. Once the condition becomes false, the loop stops. This structure prevents many common mistakes beginners make. While loops versus for loops. While loops and for loops both repeat code. The difference is when you should use them. If you don't know how many times something will repeat, use a while loop. If you do know how many times it should repeat, use a for loop. Choosing the right loop makes your code easier to understand. Real-world use cases for loops. Loops are used everywhere. Counting numbers. Displaying menu options. Processing lists of data. Anytime something needs to happen more than once, a loop is usually involved. Common beginner mistakes. One of the most common mistakes is creating an infinite loop. This happens when the loop condition never becomes false. Another mistake is forgetting to update values inside the loop. Understanding how loops flow helps you avoid these problems. What you learned in this lesson. In this lesson, you learned why loops exist. You learned how while loops work. You learned how for loops work. And you learned when to choose one over the other. In the next episode, we'll look at break and continue, which give you even more control over loops. Welcome back to the C#